Hey everyone, this is Carolyn here with Carolyn Braden's Turning the Ordinary into the Extraordinary. Today I want to show you how to make something called a Fascinator. I've made one out of tulle before and it turned out quite beautiful. But today I want to show you how to make one out of something called sinamay. So let's get started. Here are the tools that you will need. You will need an 18-inch square of sinamay, any color, your favorite color. Mine is pink in this case. A ruler, because you need to make sure your measurements are right. You need some fabric scissors. You need a needle and some thread. You'll need a headband. You'll need some feathers. You need some hot glue, and you also need an iron. So first step is to take your 18-inch square of sinamay and fold it in half to make a big triangle. Once you have it in a big triangle, you want to cut it in half to form two triangles. So let's take it one triangle at a time, shall we? I'm going to hold the triangle where the longer edge is to me and the pointy edge is facing away from me. I'm going to take my yardstick and I'm going to put the number 4 to 4 inches at the corner, and then I'm going to draw a line right here. I put some protective paper down so I wouldn't ruin my table, and so it's very faint, you can barely see it, but I know that it's there and you'll know that it's there. Then I'm going to turn it around to where the pointy edge is now facing the opposite way, and I'm going to measure in 4 inches just like I did on the other end. Then what you want to do is place your yardstick on those 2 points that you just marked, here and here, because you're making 4-inch strips basically out of this triangle. This is just an easier way to do it. So I'm going to put it way underneath my paper to make sure I don't get on the table. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but just try to make sure it's at about 4 inches. And I'm going to draw a line straight from one point to the other. After I have my line, it's very faint again, very, very faint, but I can see it. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut along that line that I just drew. So now I have one strip. Next, you want to do it again because you want another strip. It's just going to be a little shorter this time. So I'm going to turn the point away from me, making sure the longer edge, let's set this aside, is facing this way. I'm going to do 4 inches again. Come in, 4 inches, mark it, turn the point away from me, and mark it another 4 inches. Put it on my protective paper, ruler in between the points, point 1, point 2, and draw a line. I'll take my scissors, I've got that faint line from here to here, and cut. So now I have 2 strips from that triangle, plus now a mini triangle. Let's do the exact same thing to the next. Here's a tip if you want to flatten out your sinamay. If it's really bendy, you can roll it the opposite way, or you can also put it under some heavy books or magazines. This will make it flatten out slightly. Now I have a long strip and I need to fold the edges of the long strip towards the middle of the strip. So I'm folding, folding, and you want to take the other edge and fold it to meet what you just folded inward on the other side. So I'm going to fold it and crease. It's not going to stay totally closed. It's going to kind of unwrap like that right now, and that's totally fine. You'll fix that in a moment. So let's finish folding the edge of this one strip. So now that I have it somewhat folded, this is the most fun part of the whole project, I think. Now we are going to pull the sinamay tight, and that will stretch it out and make it look like it has less what is called sizing. The sizing is the space in between each of the fibers, and I'm going to pull it, and it's going to start really looking like the strip that we want for the Fascinator. So let's continue to pull. Okay, so now I've pulled it really tight, and this is what it looks like. And now we want to iron it together. When you iron it, it will make this fold stay nice and flat. I've got an iron, I'm going to turn it up a little bit to maybe a polyester setting. And I've got it seam facing up towards me. And I'm going to hold the iron over it until it lays flat. If you don't want, I have a craft iron to do this stuff with, so if you don't want to ruin your iron, put maybe a thin cloth down on top of this, because it'll just maybe protect it a little bit more. So after you've ironed it down, you might want to just go over it again just to make sure it's nice and flat. It's not going to be perfectly flat, but no one will see this edge of your fascinator when it's all put together. This will be the underside of one of the bow-like features that we're going to make. So here is one strip that you will be using to make your fascinator. Let's do this to the rest of our strips. Now all 4 strips are finished and they are nice and flat. I went back over them with a little bit of steam so it self-adhered to itself. And I'm going to now just trim the ends a little bit because of this pointy end. We don't need that. Just trim it slightly on all 4 strips. Now I'm going to take my 2 longest strips. I'm going to form kind of a S shape with them. It's kind of like an S. And I'm going to take the front part of the S and I'm going to bring it to the center and take the other one, which was the S, the end of the S, and wrap it around that way. So it's going to form kind of this bow shape that's a little bit of a twist. Play around with this a little bit. The first few times I did it, I had kind of a difficult time figuring it out, but I was just like S, S. Okay, to me that's S. I'm going to bring it here and then bring the tail into the S, kind of twist it slightly, and put it right to the center. So it's kind of this really cool little bow shape. And I found in my sewing basket some pins, and you will need to pin this down just for use later. And then do the exact same thing with your second longer strip. So now I have 2 large little bows, and I'm going to do the same S thing with one of the small strips. You want to take this remaining strip and you want to roll it into this cone shape. So it's just wrapping it over itself. So I've got a loop. I'm going to bring it around. And this is going to be the center of your big bow that you're making. And around. And around. And try to have the ends where the ends were. It's easiest if you try to have them meet. And it looks like this. It's just kind of like a little tornado. And you want to pin this as well. So here are your pieces. You've got a cone, you've got 2 big bows, and 1 small bow. So now let's start getting these put together. So now I want to stitch together these loops. Now, for those of you that are not handy with a needle and a thread, you really can just hot glue these together. It's totally up to you. Of course, the hot glue version won't last as long as the sewn version. So what I will do is I will leave the pin in just for a few moments while I get it started. And I'm going to start from the bottom. With the bottom will be kind of this, because it acts like this. This other side, this will be the bottom. Take my needle and thread, and I'm going to go through it several times, kind of stopping before you get that knot. I think I pulled it through a little bit. Ooh, there we go. And back down. And you just want to stitch it enough times to make sure that it's in there really good. Sometimes it's tough to get through the sinamay, so you might need to pull it a little bit, but just kind of go slow so you don't get it all tangled up. And after I've got a couple of stitches through it, I will take out the pin. You want to do this to all of your pieces. So I'm going to stitch through this several more times, pull out the pin, and continue to stitch until I have it to where I know it's not going to come apart. So do this to this one, this one, this one, and this one. Now we have all of our pieces stitched together. Now you want to take your 2 large bows and place one on top of the other, just slightly off center. You can place it like this and make it totally crisscross, or just slightly off center like I'm going to do mine. Then you want to stitch these two pieces together. You can go ahead and add your third now if you want to, but I recommend only stitching two together at a time at first, because it will start to get a little difficult to get the needle through the material. Again, hot glue will always work for this part of the project as well. So now I have these two stitched together, the two large ones, and I'm going to take the third one and I'll place it right in the center, kind of crossing through it. You can make this one slightly off kilter as well if you don't want it to be super symmetrical. You could place it like this. It's totally up to you. I'm going to set mine just maybe in the center until I like it. How about like that? I like that. Kind of looks like a butterfly. And then you want to continue to stitch these. Now's the time to have some fun. I've got all my pieces together except for the cone. The cone is going to hide the feathers, the bottoms of the feathers that is, in a moment, so I'm going to set that aside. And now you can play with feathers. Figure out if you want feathers at all. You don't have to, but I'm going to start just gluing some feathers down into a pretty arrangement. After you have your feathers down, if you want to put a couple of stitches through them just to make sure they're secure, you can. And now you want to hide the center by using the little tornado shape. You can put it in any direction you want. I've kind of played around with it and thought it looked best this way. And in this case, I'm going to glue it, and I'm also going to do some stitching. Okay, so I have everything put together. Now's the time when you want to go to a mirror and you want to make sure you know exactly where you want the fascinator. I'm going to do mine off to the side a little bit. I'm going to wear it on my right side, and I want to make sure that the feathers for me are going straight up. It's up to you how you want to wear it. Just I would make sure you adjust it in the mirror, because once you have it attached to your headband, it's a little difficult to get it apart. I'm going to stitch mine on by going under and over the headband. If you want to try gluing it on the headband, feel free to do so. I'm just going to stitch it on to make sure that mine stays on. Getting it started is probably the most difficult thing, so the easiest way I can say to do it is to hold on to the headband, maybe go under, like through some of your thread work, and do it this way a couple of times just to kind of get it started. And then once you get this looped around and kind of make it attached a little bit, see how it's attached a little now, then you can go all the way through the fascinator and then back down. And I would do this several times until you make sure that it's super tight and it's not going to blow off if it happens to be a windy day. Now my fascinator is complete. I've got it all stitched on. If you want to put a little bit of extra glue, hot glue in there to make sure that it stays on, you can. Mine's not going anywhere. I've got it on there pretty good. If you want to take your scissors and trim some of the areas where the sinamay is sticking up, or maybe the iron didn't quite get them down all the way, do that. And it looks quite professional. I think all in all, in the world of YouTube, of course, this didn't take me very long, but this took me about an hour to do. I've done this before, so I think the first time I did it might have taken a little bit longer. If you hot glue, it's definitely going to take less time. Let's go try this on. Here's my fascinator. It's completely finished and I am derby ready. It didn't take very much effort. So you can save maybe probably about $200, because that's what I've seen some very fancy fascinators going for. And just make it yourself. Make it your own. Be a little bit creative. Thanks for watching Carolyn Braden's Turning the Ordinary into the Extraordinary.